ESG is no longer actually something that you should look at as like a buzzword or something. It's a mandate actually now,
Right,
and it's
right.
even the government which is pushing for these changes in
Changes.
corporate governance,
Right.
and they are demanding. And it's not only the government, but it's also the society at large. It's the stakeholders who are demanding greater corporate awareness around the involvement of environmental and social aspects of governance.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Charu Mehra, and today's guest is someone who has quietly shaped the backbone of operational excellence in global businesses with precision, foresight, and discipline that spans over 3.5 decades. Mr. Ravin Gandhi, thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Charu. The honor is all mine, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Great. So, as a qualified mechanical engineer, Mr. Gandhi has held senior roles across the spectrum, from Siemens to GTL to his remarkable tenure at Orange Business Services as Chief Risk Officer and Head of Revenue Assurance. Over the years, he's built global logistics systems, implemented industry first revenue protection frameworks, and led India operations to ISO certification standards, all while managing high stake functions like order to bill, compliance, and vendor management. What stands out, Mr. Gandhi, is your consistency from early automation savings at Siemens to heading international logistics through Singapore, and from overseeing risk frameworks across APAC to being rated outstanding by the CEO year after year. Your career is a playbook in operational governance and strategic leadership.
Thank you, Charu, for that introduction. And yeah, it's been an extremely fulfilling journey, which have arranged a gamut of experiences, ranging from the conventional manufacturing industry to the new age service oriented industry, spanning various functions across the organization. And this has actually enabled me to hone my problem solving, analytical people, and leadership skills.
Since we're talking about your journey, if you can just take us back to where it all began and walk us through the journey in the way you experienced it.
Sure, thank you, Charu. So my career started in the early 1980s, and I joined Siemens as a manufacturing process engineer. Siemens, as you know, is a German MNC.
Right.
And I was with them for almost 8 years. And in those 8 years, I was initially mandated to design and implement low-cost automation projects.
Mm-hmm.
Then, in between, when the initial personal computing came into India, I was mandated to look into automating our planning-based systems.
Right.
Uh, so having done that over the next 2 3 years, then I was also mandated after that to handle the strategic planning of our switch gears unit, and that I'm happy to say resulted in a second switch gears factory at Nasik.
Wow.
And then after that, early 90s was the time when I thought about changing track, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt that I needed a little more corporate kind of exposure.
Exposure.
Yeah. And that is the time when I got this opportunity to join a public limited company in the steel industry called Comet Steels. And
Mm-hmm.
I joined there as the chief of staff to the managing director.
Okay.
And that exposure was for about 3 years, which basically helped me to develop interpersonal skills with functional leadership and the
Right.
middle management level. Yeah, this was also the time when I actually learned what MIS dashboards for leaderships meant because
True.
I was hands-on in preparing those.
Right.
Uh, uh, Then we also had these monthly plant visits, which had to be done. The plants were based in Nanded, and I had to visit the plants on a monthly basis to review their performance with the leadership team there. That was part of the engagement I had.
Right.
And towards the end of my stint with them, I was also deputed in a leadership crisis to oversee the purchase function in that company.
Okay.
So around the mid 90s, as we all know, that there was massive globalization and liberalization happening of the Indian economy.
Right.
And that gave rise to new age industries in the telecom, IT, and ITS segments. Then in the late 90s, I wanted to get into an entrepreneurial venture
Mm-hmm.
where, along with three other co founders, we founded a web solutions company called Savex Softech.
Okay.
And we were into the development of Salesforce web solutions for major pharma and consumer companies. We
Mm-hmm.
also had web based solutions for the stock market brokers.
Okay.
Our first year went really well. Unfortunately, what followed was the dot com bust in the early 2000s, rather.
Right.
And then we tried to survive as long as we could, which was for another couple of years, after
Mm-hmm.
which we had to wrap up.
Okay.
So around that time, there was also in my earlier company, the Global Telesystems, where the Nortel Systems integration business was growing rapidly, and they had a leadership crisis again at that time. And that was the time when I joined them back.
Okay.
And this was basically to handle their commercial setup, their commercial
Mm-hmm.
operations, especially
Mm-hmm.
procurements and imports and logistics. And during this period, which was almost 8 years, again after that, I built and mentored the commercial team. I put in systems and processes, defined key metrics. I also helped to build a robust MIS system.
Right.
During this time, we also adopted the Oracle ERP, and I was also instrumental in developing an order management system in house.
Wow. Okay.
Uh, and this was, of course, in addition to all the operational activities of procurement and logistics that we had.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
So,
wow. That is such a compelling arc, Mr. Gandhi. And
yeah, thank you so
I
much.
see you've touched so many aspects of enterprise leadership and,
Hmm.
hearing it all tied together like this really
Sure.
gives a sense of depth and intention behind your journey. So thank you
Right.
so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Mr. Gandhi, you've led procurement and logistics for global giants like Nortel and Alcatel. But
Mm.
back then, global supply chains weren't just complex, they were constantly evolving. Now, with
Yes.
everything from geopolitical tensions to tech shifts, the game's changed again. So,
Right.
from your lens, having seen it all unfold firsthand,
Hmm.
how do you think procurement strategy has truly evolved, especially when we are talking about global multi-layered supply chains today?
Sure. So, in the early 80s and the right up to the mid 90s,
Hmm.
before the globalization and the liberalization of the economy hit in,
Right.
we had a lot of import barriers and restriction in trade.
Agreed.
And there was something that used to be called as the license Raj at that time, where for every, literally for practically most imports, we had to approach the Department of Telecom for licenses to import.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was the era where probably it was very difficult to import consumer and capital goods at that time.
Hmm.
But post the mid 90s, when the globalization and the liberalization took effect,
Right.
a lot of changes happened in the imports and exports transactions. And the tariffs were reduced sharply.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then, there were these global brands who wanted to foray into India. through,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to do it through partnered ecosystems because FDIs were not supported those days.
Right.
So they used to partner with companies like us,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to basically do the procurements from them and import them through their various global distribution setups.
Okay.
So they're taking example of the Nautil business that we were engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
There were uh, there were a lot of distributed manufacturing hubs across the world. So it was a challenge getting a solution across to the customer, because it first meant you had to consolidate their
Right.
shipments into one place, and
Right.
and then ship it on to them later on.
Right.
So this was the kind of scenario we had, and
Mm-hmm.
this gave rise to overseas trading hubs, especially in places like Singapore and Dubai, where
Right.
they had free trade zones.
Mm-hmm.
So equipment from these various sourcing partners. I mean, we used to be able to consolidate and then
Right.
bring them down to India.
Right.
Then over the years, of course, India itself adopted the export processing zones, the free trade zones, and the software technology parks.
Right.
And that was another step forward in the entire process.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, of course, there were other challenges that we had faced. I mean, and basically, especially, there were trade embargoes, post Pokhran testing, as you
Right.
know, and US had imposed a trade sanction on
Right.
India. And
Mm-hmm.
hence, that was becoming a very challenging aspect for us to be able to import, especially since Nortel was a US based company.
Right.
So there were a lot of issues around those. Then came the era where the manufacturing hubs shifted to China because of their manufacturing excellence and their building up of the manufacturing facilities.
Right.
But
Right.
that itself led to other issues, as we know, and that led to many security scares and espionage risks.
Right.
Uh, then, of course, followed the COVID, where we all know where the supply chains were totally disrupted for a
Disrupted.
long time.
Absolutely. Right.
So from there, I think we have moved on now. Of course, things have eased out. Uh, Global companies have further distributed their manufacturing to other hubs, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and India also being one of the more recent hubs, basically where they are looking to partner for manufacturing facilities.
Right. Right. Right.
And of course, that of course will ease a lot of pressure on the supply chain.
Right. Wow. It's so rare to get this kind of clarity from someone who's truly lived through the evolution, both structurally and strategically. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, sure.
So, Mr. Gandhi, I've always believed that what leaders choose to measure says a lot about what they value. And in your case, having built operational metrics for complex, large scale systems. So I'm really curious. When you were setting those metrics, how did you decide what truly mattered? And how did you ensure those measures stayed relevant as the businesses evolved?
Sure, Charles. So basically, our organization was into the business of providing IT networking solutions like data centers, communication
Hmm.
systems, statewide area networks, security
Right,
systems, right? And we started as a very young organization. So initially, in fact, we had little control. We had rudimentary systems, barely any metrics, and since we were early movers in that industry, we didn't even have industry benchmarks.
Ben, right, right.
So, of course, this all led to a lot of firefighting and a lot of customer dissatisfaction because of
Hmm.
the gaps in their expectations and what we were in a position to deliver.
Right.
And of course, that led to the thinking that we needed to become a little more systematic and process oriented. This
Hmm.
was the time when we actually implemented ISO 9000 across
Right.
the organization.
Okay.
So, having done that shortly after that, we also realized that it was not just enough to have systems and processes, but we'll need to measure our deliverables at
Right.
every functional level. And
Right.
this is the time when we actually started to look at the key process or key performance indicators.
Indicators.
Yeah,
Right.
and and towards this initiative, we actually implemented a lot of Six Sigma projects at that time.
Right. Right.
And I was part of one of those projects, which was a black belt project, which was
Mm-hmm.
to reduce customer delivery delays and with the minimal shortages in their deliverables. So, as part of the initiative to bring in KPIs,
Mm-hmm.
we basically adopted Six Sigma projects. And
Right.
one of
Right.
the projects was led by me, which was a
Mm-hmm.
black belt project.
Black belt.
And this
Right.
was basically to define the KPI for reducing the cycle time from order receipt to the customer to
Customer.
delivery of the products to their project sites with
Right.
minimal or no short supplies, basically.
Right. Right.
Yeah, we were taking almost 100 days to do this, to deliver our products and solutions to the customer at their sites. So this basically was a big problem because the customers expected a lot shorter cycle time. So
I'm
we
sure.
worked on those on the project. We came up with the process improvements. We defined the metrics, and we started monitoring and tweaking our systems and processes. By the end of which, we actually were able to manage to reduce the cycle down to 60 days, and
Wow.
subsequently that even bring it down to 48 days.
Oh,
So
awesome.
this actually later on became an industry benchmark as well.
Right. Wow.
So there were a lot of benefits that we derived from this project. Basically, it improved our CSATs scores tremendously. It brought down our working capital requirements from about 3.5 times a year to 6 times. And this
Absolutely.
resulted in savings of working capital and, of course, the working capital interest that we were spending.
Right.
It improved the productivity of our order to bill function.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helped us to increase our revenue base with the same manpower by almost 25 to 30%.
Wow. Wow.
So, so this is basically what I wanted to drive at. How important key performance indicators are,
Indicators are.
and that is why I gave
Absolutely.
this as an example.
Right.
And of course, then subsequently, I mentored many other black belt in Six Sigma green belt projects,
Projects.
such as for the delivery functions and the billings and the procurements, the payables, receivables.
Right. That's wonderful, that really brings the strategy behind the numbers to life, Mr. Gandhi. And it's not often we get to hear how metrics evolve with strategic leadership thinking. So that was really incredibly insightful.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Gandhi, what always stood out about your journey is the range from manufacturing floors to complex software ecosystems and then on to large scale network integration at the global level. That kind of technical grounding, it's not just impressive, it's rare. So, how much of that early technical understanding helped shape the way you led later, especially when decisions got more strategic and risks more layered?
Yeah, so I think I would like to credit my engineering education basically which really enabled me to develop a strong reasoning and an analytical ability
Mm-hmm.
and an ability to visualize problems beforehand and to
Right,
dig down deep to get to the root causes of the problem and to
right,
come up with probable solutions for those. So the rigor of the engineering education also enabled me to learn and to grasp and apply myself very quickly.
right, right,
So this kind of molded me to also in developing a systems and a process approach. So basically, my technical grounding also helped me in transitioning to commercial roles later.
right, right.
So the technical grounding which helped me to understand the products and the solutions that we were offering to the
Mm-hmm.
customer at a very high level, of course.
Absolutely. Right.
But that helped me to develop and hone my techno-commercial acumen.
Right. Right.
So it was this exposure that helped me later to transition to the risk management role that I played.
Mm-hmm.
And This actually gave me a vantage position in the entire business value chain because this
Wow.
enabled me to actually interact with all the functions in the organization
Organization.
and to
Right.
understand their objectives and for the business.
Absolutely.
So even as an when as part of the order to below the revenue assurance role that I had, there
Right.
I was required to interact with multiple functions to make sure that we were able to deliver our products to the customers on time.
Time.
And this
Right.
helped us to visualize what would be the showstoppers and what would be enablers.
Right.
And this also helped me in basically getting an overview at the operational and the enterprise,
Mm.
at the risk faced at the operational and the enterprise level.
Right. Wow. That makes so much sense, Mr. Gandhi. And it's a reminder of how no part of our journey ever goes to waste. And you can really hear how the technical depth shaped your perspective as a leader. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Gandhi, after a career as rich and expansive as yours, I still have a feeling you're not done contributing just yet. So I'd love to ask, as you look ahead, are there any aspirations still calling out to you? Maybe a role in the boardroom? Uh, what are you looking forward to?
Sure, Charu. Thank you for that question. Well, I retired in the middle of the first phase of COVID, which was in 2020.
Okay.
Post that, of course, so the next couple of years after that, 2, 3 years after that, there was a period of uncertainty and there were a lot of upheavals,
Hmm.
on the personal health front
Right.
and also because there was an economic downturn
Economic.
and there were limited
Absolutely.
opportunities available for senior retired professionals.
I guess most of,
So
everyone was going through something like that during that time.
absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So this was in fact the time then I decided to take a step back and I decided to take a sabbatical for a few years
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
pursue some other interests that I had at that time.
Right.
Uh, so I took a step back there. But I think there was a point in time after that that I felt that okay, yeah, I mean, I think there was also the situation where the economy started improving
Proving.
tremendously, and there was this
Right.
upturn. Yeah,
Right.
and this basically kind of rekindled, you can say, a desire
Hmm.
in me to look at opportunities again. And
Right.
basically, of course, I didn't want to get into just about any opportunity that came my way, but I wanted
Agreed.
to pick and choose and to get into something that made a little more, it was more meaningful for me, and basically that would enable me to grow as well.
Absolutely.
So, of course, with the startup ecosystem kind of exploding in India today,
Right.
global companies wanting to come into India and start, manufacturing bases or provide their services. This,
Hmm.
I think, looked like a good time to look at those options.
Right.
So, but this also meant that I needed to look at how to upgrade myself to stay relevant in this situation.
Absolutely.
And it was basically that which made me look at opportunities in the market available.
Wow. Wow. That's so inspiring, Mr. Gandhi. It's clear how your journey hasn't been just about achievement. It's about the way you said the opportunity should also have meaning behind it. It's about creating a legacy and how thoughtfully you're shaping what comes next.
Sure.
And I wish you all the best for your upcoming journey.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Gandhi, when we talk about leadership today, especially at the board level, it's no longer just about delivering numbers. There is this growing expectation to also lead with purpose, to be conscious of the impact businesses have on communities, the environment, and long-term sustainability.
Yeah.
So, giving your experience navigating operational and reputational risk, I'd love to hear your take on ESG. How do you see ESG thinking helping companies prevent risk and not just react to it?
Yeah, Charu, thank you for that question again. It's a compelling question, in fact, and it's something that we need to look into very deeply.
Absolutely.
ESG is no longer actually something that you should look at as like a buzzword or something. It's a mandate actually now,
Right,
and it's
right.
even the government which is pushing for these changes in
Changes.
corporate governance,
Right.
and they are demanding. And it's not only the government, but it's also the society at large. It's the stakeholders who are demanding a greater corporate awareness around the involvement of environmental and social aspects of governance.
Right, right.
So, no, not implementing or not getting ESG initiatives into the organization is not. It's not like a good to have now. It's a must
This
have for
must have.
corporates.
Right, right.
In fact, the World Economic Forum, the Global Risk Report, it states that 8 out of the 10 projected risks worldwide, they are all related to environmental and
Yeah.
social risks,
Okay.
such as like the biodiversity, loss of
Right,
biodiversity, the natural resources erosion, livelihood crisis, geopolitical
right,
imbalances and
right.
frictions, and of course, as we've seen recently, the pandemics. So, not addressing these risks at the organizational levels can only have a long-term adverse impact,
Fact.
not only for the organization but for the society at large.
Right, right,
So, ESG thinking has to come into the systems and processes of the organizations, and they need to adopt the rigors of the ESG reporting and to
right.
be able to implement effective controls. This is the burning
Absolutely.
need of the hour.
Agreed,
Now, the
agreed.
role
And
that enterprise risk management can play is to incorporate these ESG risks within the risk framework of the organization
organization.
and to help them drive down the rigors and the disciplines required.
Right, right,
Yeah, and this needs to be driven down, of course, not only into the business strategies, but right down to the operational levels.
right, right. It has to be, a part of the DNA now. It's
Absolutely,
not just a checkbox.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and that is such a thoughtful perspective. As we're talking about it, it's not just a trend. It's becoming foundational to how responsible businesses think ahead. And I think the businesses that have ESG built in their DNA definitely have an edge over the others.
Very, very, very rightly said, Char. Very rightly said.
Right. So, my last question for you today, Mr. Gandhi, is when someone like you chooses to engage with Directors Institute, it makes us curious. You've had such a great and expansive career. So, what drew you to the institute at this stage in your journey, and how has this experience added value to the way you view boardroom readiness and modern governance today?
Right. So, like I pointed out earlier, also, Charu, that about a year back, post the COVID and everything, and with economic upturn happening, yeah, that was a time when I saw that I needed to, or I wished to get back into action,
Right,
basically. And this would basically, having had 3 to 4 decades of experience behind me, uh,
right,
I wanted to put that back into practice. But like I said, I also saw that there was a need to upgrade my current
upgrade,
capabilities,
right,
to come up and to become more relevant. So, and it was around this time that I saw an introductory feed on Instagram, calling
okay.
upon senior professionals to try out the board level appointments as independent directors or non-executive directors. So this intrigued me actually.
Right.
And that is when I decided to attend that seminar, which was presented by Mr. Heval Mehta and Mr. Zishan Pathan.
Mm-hmm.
And that seminar familiarized us to opportunities like for the IDs and the MEDs in advisory levels at the board positions.
Right.
This interested me, and hence I decided to join the course. Now, the course is very comprehensive, covering a gamut of topics ranging from
Hmm.
boardroom practices, roles of directors, responsibilities of the board and the committees, shareholder
Right.
rights, responsibilities, corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, and of
Responsible.
course the ESG practices.
Right.
So pretty holistic, I think, all in all.
That's so wonderful to hear, and thank you for that wonderful feedback. And it also is really inspiring when we see that leaders like yourself who have such great experience are still looking to enhance their skills as you talked about it. And it really means a lot when someone with your experience finds value in the journey. So thank you so much for that feedback and wish you all the best. And I hope this curriculum really to, adds to your skills and helps you achieve the goals that you have set for yourself for the future.
I enjoyed this conversation, Charu, and I thank you once again for having me on it. It was a good platform for me to be able to express myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. And Mr. Gandhi, this chat has been nothing short of brilliant for me as well. You've taken us through decades of transformation, not just in business systems, but in how leadership itself evolves. And it's rare to get this kind of perspective in one sitting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for listening to me too.
And to our audience, if today's episode gave you something to think about, that's clearly what FaceTime with Leaders is here for. Stories like Mr. Gandhi's remind us that leadership is built one decision, one challenge, one lesson at a time. We'll be back soon with more voices that matter. Until then, stay curious and keep building forward. Thank you.